Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine, and this is another edition of Supplier Showcase. And with me today is somebody who's probably pretty familiar to a lot of park owners, Irene Jones, who's the Assistant Vice President and Program Manager for Marshall and Sterling. And I guess you got one of those titles here recently, right, Irene?
Actually, I'm the Vice President of Program and Industry at Marshall and Sterling.
There you go. I mean, you've been in the industry a long time, I guess. How long have you been working with RV parks and campgrounds?
Oh, well over a decade, probably my 12th, 13th,
Yeah.
13th year, 13th year. Yeah. So I've seen a lot of changes.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, and I think one of those changes we wanted to touch on right away was the movement from kind of like maybe the mom and pop stuff or like single owner parks to like people owning multiple parks or like larger, I guess, development groups. I guess what's been some of that stuff that you've seen on the insurance? How's that been impacting the insurance market? I guess.
So it definitely is the trend where we're seeing more multi-park operators, groups
Yeah.
who are investing in, 5, 10, 30, 300 parks. And so
Hmm.
I think it's really affecting the underwriting process. What underwriting insurance carriers want is they want to insure parks that have experienced operators and managers, and they want to insure parks that are good risks. So on the positive side, we've got investments in infrastructure. We've got the ability to train staff across locations, and to run operations and amenities well. Uh, on the challenge side, all of those things are equally challenges because they take resources, they take strategy, they take time and implementation. So I think that in the original model, when we founded our campground practice in 2012 with an independent campground owner who was on staff. So that's how our industry came up. And you had a lot of hands-on mom and pop operators who knew the ins and outs of the campgrounds and operated them with pride and took care of the operations. When you move in and you're purchasing these parks, it's really essential to be having processes and procedures in place to have training for the staff and to maintain high standards of quality. And part of the issue that's going on in insurance is that insurance rates are rising. And I think we think about all the suffering that's going on in California with the wildfires, and we think about hurricanes coming through. But in addition to the fact that there's property insurance losses all across the U.S., the Midwest is now having catastrophic wind events. So now it's everywhere with property. There's also a big rise in nuclear verdicts that are happening, and that is liability. So the way that you combat some of these rising liability and property insurance costs are with good training, with good risk management. And I think that these independent park owners are uniquely qualified to implement these tools, but it takes a lot of time and energy to do that alone. And that's where Marshall and Sterling comes in because we do have processes and systems that are really best in class. And that's where putting that strategy together of really good risk management, benefiting from the breadth and depth of our experience, and then positioning yourself with carriers as a preferred risk, but also strategically, these larger operations are in a better position to maybe maintain some of the risks themselves, do a little bit of self-insurance, conglomerate, get some better rates, and make some really good strategic choices. And that's what we have started to really focus on in our practice is zooming in to work with partners in the multi-park operator space who want to have a strategic consultant, who want to implement resources that we have, and that seems to be making a difference.
How does that? On the legislative side, I know we've seen like quite a few states enact some of these liability laws. Are these multi-park operators more active in that area and trying to go after some of these legislative efforts that will help them on the insurance side?
I think that we can all agree that the multi-park operators, the mom and pops, the associations, the insurance agents, we support immunity laws. And those really say that, if you're, um, they don't absolve anyone of negligence, but if there's an inherent risk in camping, that the business owner should be immune to a lawsuit from an inherent risk in nature. The the issue with that is there's a long tail for implementation. So what we'll do at Marshall and Sterling is when we hear that there's an immunity law, we'll share that information with our partner carriers, our underwriters. Um, but we have to look and see how that affects lawsuits over time. It's not a switch that you put on and the light comes on. You have to see how that's affecting it. So it's a step in the right direction, but um, on a case by case basis, I think it's very important to go back to, at the end of the day, whether you're a single park operating on your own or a multi park operator, we are looked at in the industry as how is the industry operating. And the claims
Hmm.
trends that we're seeing are brown water deaths. Those are deaths, drownings in lakes and areas where of natural water, where you can not see someone who's under the water and they drown. So
Yeah.
evaluating that at your campground and making some good sound decisions. We've got some excellent resources to support you with that. Um, Trip and fall lawsuits. That's the common one, right? So a lot of this, I'm coming out of the shower, I tripped and fell. Do you have bath mats? Walking down the pathways, I tripped and fell. Walking into the pool. We're seeing huge payouts in those areas. And then, adding on top of that, the property issues. So you can't control weather, but heck, you can have a really good tree trimming program. So all of those things do come together to be proactive, and those are things that we can do because if there are claims in our industry, the insurance carriers are looking at the whole industry and saying, what now, what type of risk is this? And what type of rates can we give and operate profitably?
Can it be frustrating for a park owner when they seem like they're doing all the right stuff, but they still have like these lawsuits? I know when I talk to a lot of park owners, they get a little bit frustrated about the settlements and things too. So
It's very frustrating for any business owner because what happens with the lawsuits is you can't control who's going to sue you for what, no matter what happens. You can only
yeah,
control the parameters that you have and how you react to it and how you document it. And then the understanding that oftentimes with a lawsuit that the there was going to be a settlement because it will take so long to defend it, and there may be contributory negligence. And so the insurance carriers will evaluate the money spent, and sometimes they will settle. So that's extremely frustrating. It's frustrating for us too. And I think one of the differentiators at Marshall and Sterling is that we do have a claims unit that's going in to support you. So we have on the front end, we're giving you really good resources for documentation of any incidents that occur. And in fact, sometimes we will get a phone call about something that happened, and we'll do an insured only investigation with our carrier partners because we know that's going to put us in a better position to defend and push things away. So, really getting out ahead of it. And then we also have a claims unit that will follow up and help negotiate with the carriers and the adjusters with you and follow up on these lawsuits. We had a success story where there were reserves on some of these lawsuits that were in the $300,000 area, and they were reserved year after year after year. A client came to us. We started to make phone calls for them and find out that they were about to settle, and we negotiated to have those taken down and adjusted to what the actual settlement is instead of having that high reserve sit out there. So that really helped us
okay,
to
yeah,
effectively negotiate a better insurance rate. So there's a lot of technical parts that go into it in a professional partnership. Um, and I think that's one of the
Yeah.
advantages for the multi-park operators. If they have the staffing to cooperate and collaborate, to work with us on getting good data on their parks, investing in their parks, infrastructure and safety, incorporating the training tools that we have, the checklists. When we went through and we had our corporate director of loss control create a host of resources that can be used in these parks. And then we have a whole training series that I've created as the campground specialist and associate in risk management that's specific for campgrounds. If you start to do that stuff over time, that's how you're going to have a lasting impact. So it's the strategy and then that daily implementation that every park really needs to do, and then keeping in mind that insurance is greatly affected by what's going on with the weather and what's going on with the legal system. And so it's a higher cost item, and you want to take as much risk as you can on yourself and thinking about that strategically. And that's where you have a little bit more room the larger your operations are, where you can start to think about captives or self insured retentions. And you want to be captives can be a great tool, but you want to be very careful with them, because if you're going to go in with a group of people and a group of like-minded or homogenous businesses, you're going to be subject to the same issues of losses unless you're addressing safety. So if you have a large enough organization that you can have a captive on your own with a few other elite organizations, that captive is acting like a little insurance company, and all of those losses affect each other on that micro level. So you can't get away from the risk management and you can't get away from the safety, but that also enhances the customer service experience. So I think all of those things are important. And the way we think about it is partner with Marshall and Sterling to help us help you address these issues and be proactive and predict what could happen, and then put in processes to get ahead of that. So then you can focus on what's important to you, which is providing a great experience in camping and promoting your brand and having repeat customers and successful, profitable business.
Yeah, and I know I believe the Florida Association was exploring a captive at one time, so that's interesting that you brought that up.
Sure.
So it's been talked about in the industry. I guess how do people get in touch with you, Irene, or Marshall and Sterling to kind of get more information or to learn more about what you guys offer?
Sure, absolutely. marshallandsterling.com/campgrounds. Uh, you can always email me at ijones@marshallsterling.com, and we'd be happy to have one of our dedicated specialists work one on one with your group.
And you guys always attend a variety of different shows too. I mean, I see you at state association shows, the larger national shows. So you guys make the rounds too, I guess.
Uh,
So
100%. We're regulars at the glamping conference and at the Ojai conference, and we're often in Pennsylvania, New York, the Northeast, and you'll see our articles in various trade magazines as well, video series. You're going to start to see more newsletters. If you are interested in learning more, you can go to our website, marshallsterling.com/campgrounds. Sign up for our newsletter. You'll get quarterly information and tips. And we've got a great format. It's called True Claims Lessons Learned. So you'll hear some good, bad stories and some practical ways that you can address some of the common losses that we see and get out in front of them.
okay, well, it's been great catching up with you, Irene, and thanks so much for coming on the show.